In the harsh fluorescent glow of a California prison, a young officer named Ellie Harper faces a dying prisoner's final request. A wish so unexpected, it could unravel her guarded heart. What could a man with nothing left to lose ask for? That shakes the foundations of her world. Brace yourself for a story of compassion, secrets, and a fleeting moment that changes everything. The California sun dipped low, painting the sky in hues of amber and crimson, casting long shadows across the concrete walls of San Quentin State Prison. Officer Ellie Harper, barely 28, stood at her post in the infirmary ward, her Navy uniform crisp but her eyes tired. She'd seen it all in her 3 years here: anger, despair, defiance. But nothing prepared her for the man lying in bed 12, his wrists cuffed to the railings despite the tubes snaking from his arms. Ellie glanced at the chart. James Jimmy Callahan, 34, stage 4 lung cancer, prognosis terminal. His file was a grim read. Armed robbery, assault, a life sentence with no parole. But the man himself didn't match the rap sheet. His hazel eyes, though sunken, held a spark of something softer, something alive. He'd been quiet since arriving in the infirmary 2 weeks ago, rarely speaking except to thank her for small kindnesses, a glass of water, an extra pillow. Tonight, though, was different. As Ellie adjusted the IV drip, Jimmy's voice, raspy but steady, broke the silence. "Officer Harper, you ever watch the sunset from Muir Beach?" She paused, caught off guard. "Can't say I have. Why?" He smiled faintly, his lips cracked. "Used to go there as a kid. Best view in the world. The way the ocean swallows the sun makes you feel like anything's possible." Ellie didn't respond, focusing on the chart to avoid those eyes that seemed to see too much. Inmates often got nostalgic near the end, but Jimmy's words carried a weight she couldn't shake. She'd learned to keep her distance, to build walls as high as the prisons. Her job demanded it, yet something about him tugged at her. Maybe it was the way he never complained, or how he'd sketch little drawings on napkins when he thought no one was watching. The next evening, during her rounds, Jimmy was worse. His breathing was labored, his skin pale as the sheets. The doctor had whispered to her earlier, days, maybe hours. Ellie's stomach twisted. She'd seen death before, but this felt personal, like losing something she hadn't realized she'd found. "Officer Harper," Jimmy said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I got a favor to ask." "My last one," she stiffened, her training screaming caution. Inmates' requests were rarely innocent. "What is it, Callahan?" He took a shallow breath, his eyes locking onto hers. "I want to see the sunset. One last time." "At Muir Beach," Ellie's heart sank. "You know that's impossible." "You're in custody." "I can't, not in person," he interrupted, wincing as he shifted. "Just bring it to me. A video, a picture, something. You're out there in the world." "I'm not. Let me see it through you." The request hit her like a wave. It wasn't drugs, a phone, or a weapon, just a sunset. Simple yet impossible. She should have said no, reported it, moved on. But those hazel eyes, pleading without desperation, held her in place. "I'll think about it," she managed, turning away before he could see her falter. That night, Ellie couldn't sleep. Jimmy's request haunted her. She pictured him as a boy, running along Muir Beach, free before the world broke him. She'd grown up in Oakland, not far from here, but her life had been no picnic either. Absent father, overworked mother, a brother lost to the streets. She'd clawed her way into this job, proving she was tough, untouchable. But Jimmy's wish cracked that armor, reminding her of the girl who used to dream under the same California sky. The next day, against every instinct, Ellie made a decision. After her shift, she drove to Muir Beach, her phone in hand. The air was salty, the waves crashing with a rhythm that felt alive. As the sun began its descent, she recorded it. The golden light dancing on the water, the horizon swallowing the day. Her heart ached with something she couldn't name, a mix of duty and something softer, something dangerous. Back at the prison, she hesitated outside the infirmary. This could cost her job. Fraternizing with an inmate, even this small act, was a line you didn't cross. But Jimmy's time was slipping away, and so was her resolve. She slipped into his room, the lights dim, the monitors beeping softly. "Callahan," she whispered, checking the hall. "I got something for you." His eyes lit up, a flicker of the boy from the beach. She held up her phone, the video playing silently. The sunset filled the screen, vibrant and fleeting. Jimmy watched, transfixed, a tear rolling down his cheek. "That's it," he murmured. "That's exactly it." Ellie's throat tightened. "Worth the drive," she said, trying to keep it light. He looked at her, not the screen. "You didn't have to do this." "Why'd you?" She shrugged, avoiding the truth. "Seemed like a small thing." "It's not," he said, his voice breaking. "You gave me back a piece of me." "Thank you, Ellie." Hearing her first name from his lips sent a jolt through her. She should have corrected him, re-established boundaries, but she didn't. Instead, she sat beside him, the video looping. For a moment, they were just two people sharing a sunset, not officer and inmate. The next morning, Jimmy was gone. The doctor said he'd passed in the night. Peaceful. A napkin sketch of the beach clutched in his hand. Ellie found it later. A rough drawing of the ocean, a sun low in the sky, and a figure standing alone. Her silhouette unmistakable. Below it, in shaky handwriting, "For Ellie, who brought me home." She folded it carefully, tucking it into her pocket, a secret she'd carry forever. The prison walls felt tighter that day, but the sky outside was wider, brighter, like it held a promise she'd almost forgotten. Jimmy's wish had been simple, but it had changed her, reminding her that even in a place of steel and stone, a single act of kindness could ripple like a sunset across the sea. The days after Jimmy Callahan's death blurred into a haze for Ellie Harper. San Quentin's routines, clanging gates, barked orders, the hum of fluorescent lights, felt heavier, like the air itself carried the weight of his absence. The napkin sketch, tucked in her locker, burned in her mind. She hadn't looked at it since that night, but its existence felt like a secret too big for the prison's concrete walls. "For Ellie, who brought me home," those words echoed, both a gift and a burden. Ellie tried to move on. She clocked in, patrolled the cell blocks, ignored the catcalls from inmates who tested her daily. But at night, alone in her small Oakland apartment, she'd replay the sunset video on her phone, the waves crashing in silence. She'd broken protocol for Jimmy, crossed a line she swore she never would. Why? Because he'd looked at her like she was more than a uniform? Because his hazel eyes held a story she'd never know? A week later, trouble found her. During a routine shift, her supervisor, Lieutenant Morales, called her into his office. His desk was cluttered with files, his face etched with the permanent scowl of a man who'd seen too many years in corrections. "Harper," he said, not looking up. "You got a visitor. Some lawyer sniffing around about Callahan." Ellie's stomach dropped. "Lawyer for what?" Morales shrugged, flipping through a report. "Didn't say. Just asked for you by name. Be careful. These types love digging up dirt." He slid a card across the desk. "Clara Nguyen, attorney at law, San Francisco." Ellie's pulse quickened. She hadn't told anyone about the sunset video, not even her closest friend, Mia, another officer who worked the women's ward. Had someone seen her with Jimmy that night? Was the sketch enough to get her fired? She pocketed the card, her mind racing as she returned to her rounds. That evening, she met Clara Nguyen at a coffee shop in San Rafael, far from the prison's prying eyes. Clara was sharp, mid-40s, with a no-nonsense bob and eyes that missed nothing. "Officer Harper," she said, stirring her latte. "I represent someone with an interest in James Callahan's estate. I need to ask about your interactions with him." "Estate?" Ellie frowned, gripping her coffee mug. "He was a lifer." "What estate?" Clara's lips twitched, not quite a smile. "You'd be surprised. Jimmy had connections. I'm not at liberty to say more, but I know you were with him in his final days. Did he give you anything? Say anything unusual?" Ellie's thoughts flashed to the sketch, still hidden in her locker. "Just inmate talk," she lied, her voice steady despite the knot in her chest. "He was sick, dying. Mostly quiet." Clara leaned forward, her gaze piercing. "He left a letter addressed to you. My client wants it delivered, but I need to know what I'm dealing with. Jimmy wasn't just some thief. His past is complicated." Ellie's heart thudded. "A letter?" She kept her face neutral, years of training kicking in. "I don't know anything about a letter." "If you've got it, hand it over." Clara studied her, then slid an envelope across the table. It was plain, sealed, with Ellie Harper scrawled in Jimmy's shaky handwriting. "My client's instructions are clear. You get this, but they want to know if Jimmy shared anything. Sensitive." Ellie took the envelope, her fingers trembling slightly. "I'll read it. That's all I can promise." Back home, she sat on her couch, the envelope unopened on her coffee table. The sketch was now in her hand, its pencil lines soft but deliberate. A beach, a sunset, her silhouette. She traced the words at the bottom, her throat tight. What had Jimmy meant by home? And why did a dead convict have a lawyer and a client chasing his ghost? She tore open the envelope, Inside was a single sheet folded with a short note. Ellie, you gave me the sunset when I had nothing left. I don't have much to give back, but there's a truth I never told anyone. In my cell, under the loose tile by the bunk, there's a notebook. It's not what you think, not a confession, not a con. It's my life, the parts that mattered. If you find it, you'll understand why I asked for the beach. Keep it safe or destroy it. Your choice. But if you keep it, don't trust anyone, not even the badge you wear. Thank you for everything. Jimmy Ellie's breath caught. A notebook? In his cell? She could lose everything. Her job, her reputation, if she got caught digging around an inmate's cell. But the warning, don't trust anyone, gnawed at her. Jimmy had seen something in her. Trusted her with his final wish. Could she ignore this? The next day, during a rare quiet shift, Ellie slipped into Jimmy's old cell, now empty. Her heart pounded as she pried up the tile by the bunk, her flashlight shaking in her hand. There it was, a small leather-bound notebook, worn but intact. She stuffed it into her jacket, her mind screaming to stop, to walk away. But she didn't. That night she read. The notebook wasn't a diary of crimes, but a collection of memories. Sketches of Muir Beach, poems about the ocean, stories of a boy who loved a girl named Sarah before life spiraled into chaos. Jimmy wrote of a robbery gone wrong, a partner who betrayed him, a system that buried him alive. But one page stood out, dated a month before his death. I saw her again in Officer Harper. Same fire in her eyes, same stubborn heart. Sarah's gone, but Ellie's here, carrying the sun like she doesn't know it. If I could tell her one thing, it's to run from this place. It eats people like her alive. Ellie's eyes stung. Sarah, a love lost, maybe dead, maybe the reason he'd clung to the beach. And now he'd seen her as some kind of echo. She wasn't sure if it was romantic or tragic, but it stirred something deep, a longing she'd buried under duty and discipline. The notebook also hinted at something darker, a name. Vargas, circled with a question mark, and a reference to the job in 15. Ellie's cop instincts kicked in. Vargas sounded familiar, maybe a name from an old case file. Was this what Clara's client wanted? Was Jimmy protecting something or someone? Her phone buzzed, snapping her out of her thoughts. An unknown number. She answered, cautious. Hello? Officer Harper, it's Clara Nguyen. We need to meet again. My client's getting impatient, and they know about the notebook. Ellie's blood ran cold. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't play games, Clara said, her tone sharp. Jimmy was involved with people who don't like loose ends. If you have it, you're in danger. Meet me tomorrow, same place, 7 p.m. The line went dead. Ellie stared at the notebook, her heart racing. She could turn it over, wash her hands of this. But Jimmy's words, don't trust anyone, rang louder than ever. And then there was the sketch, the letter, the way he'd said her name. She wasn't just an officer anymore. She was part of his story, whether she wanted to be or not. The next evening, Ellie arrived at the coffee shop, the notebook hidden in her bag. Clara was already there, but so was someone else. A man in a dark suit, his eyes cold and calculating. Ellie, Clara said, her voice tense. This is my client, Mr. Vargas. Ellie's hand instinctively went to her side, where her service weapon would have been if she weren't off duty. Vargas, the name from the notebook. She forced a neutral expression. What do you want? Vargas smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Just what's mine. Jimmy took something from me, a ledger, names, dates. I think you have it. I don't know anything about a ledger, Ellie said, her voice steady despite the fear creeping up her spine. Jimmy was dying. He didn't give me anything. Vargas leaned closer. You're a good liar, officer, but I've got eyes everywhere. San Quentin's not as secure as you think. Ellie's mind raced. Was he bluffing or did he have someone inside the prison? Morales, another officer? She stood, her chair scraping the floor. I'm done here. If you've got a problem, take it up with my supervisor. Clara grabbed her arm. Ellie, don't be stupid. Hand it over and this ends. Ellie yanked free, her heart pounding. Touch me again and you'll regret it. She walked out, her breath shallow, the notebook feeling like a bomb in her bag. Back home, she pored over it again, searching for a ledger, but found nothing. Just more sketches, more memories of Sarah, and a single line that chilled her. Vargas knows where she is. Who was she? Sarah? Someone else? Ellie's instincts screamed to go to the police, but Jimmy's warning stopped her. Instead, she called Mia, her only friend she trusted. I need a favor, Ellie said, her voice low. Run a name through the system. Vargas, first name unknown, tied to a robbery in 2015. Mia hesitated. Ellie, what's going on? You sound off. Just do it, Ellie snapped, then softened. Please. I'll explain later. The next day, Mia called back. Ellie, you're in deep. Vargas is Victor Vargas, ex-enforcer for a cartel, out on parole. He was tied to a heist in 15, but the case fell apart, missing evidence. Jimmy was his fall guy. Ellie's grip tightened on the phone. Jimmy hadn't just been a thief. He'd been a pawn. And now Vargas was after her, thinking she had some ledger that could expose him. But there was no ledger in the notebook, just a dead man's heart laid bare. That night, Ellie drove to Muir Beach, needing the ocean's clarity. The sun was setting, just like in the video she'd shown Jimmy. She pulled out the notebook, flipping to a sketch of a woman with long hair standing by the water. Sarah, it read. Below it, an address in San Francisco scribbled faintly. Ellie's breath caught. Was Sarah alive? Was this why Jimmy wanted the sunset? A memory tied to her? And why had he trusted her with this? She made a choice. The next morning, she drove to the address. A small, weathered house in the Mission District. An older woman answered, her eyes wary but kind. Can I help you? I'm looking for Sarah, Ellie said, her voice unsteady. I knew Jimmy Callahan. The woman's face softened, then crumpled. Jimmy's gone, isn't he? She stepped aside. Come in. I'm Sarah's mother. Inside, Ellie learned the truth. Sarah had died years ago. A car accident just before Jimmy's arrest. He'd spiraled after, taking the fall for Vargas to protect Sarah's family who'd been threatened. The notebook wasn't a ledger. It was Jimmy's way of keeping Sarah alive, of holding on to the boy he'd been. The address was a final plea, a hope that Ellie would find Sarah's mother, tell her he'd never forgotten. Ellie handed over the notebook, tears in her eyes. He wanted you to have this. Sarah's mother clutched it, sobbing. He loved her so much. Thank you. As Ellie left, the weight of the past weeks lifted, but not entirely. Vargas was still out there, and she'd defied him. She drove back to the beach, the sunset blazing. She didn't have all the answers, but she had Jimmy's truth, a love that outlasted prison bars, a wish that had changed her. She whispered to the waves, "You're home, Jimmy." And for the first time in years, Ellie felt like she might find her own way home. 2. The San Francisco fog rolled in thick that evening, cloaking the city in a gray haze that mirrored Ellie Harper's thoughts. She sat in her car outside her Oakland apartment, the engine off, the weight of Jimmy Callahan's notebook still heavy in her memory despite its absence. Handing it to Sarah's mother had felt like the right thing, a way to honor Jimmy's final wish. But the encounter with Victor Vargas at the coffee shop lingered like a storm on the horizon. His cold eyes, his veiled threats, "I've got eyes everywhere," had rooted deep in her mind, sprouting unease she couldn't shake. Ellie's phone buzzed, snapping her back to the present. It was Mia, her voice low and urgent. "Ellie, you need to get somewhere safe, now." I dug deeper into Vargas. He's not just some ex-con. He's got ties to half the dirty cops in the Bay Area. Word is he's asking about you. Ellie's grip tightened on the phone. What do you mean asking? Like, who's asking? Someone at San Quentin's feeding him info. I don't know who, but you're on his radar. Whatever Jimmy gave you, Vargas thinks it's worth killing for. Ellie's heart pounded. I don't have anything, Mia. I gave the notebook away. Mia's silence was heavy. Then why's he still after you? Ellie, you're not telling me everything. Ellie closed her eyes, the sketch of her silhouette on Muir Beach flashing in her mind. She hadn't told Mia about the notebook's contents, the poems, the sketches, or Jimmy's warning. Don't trust anyone. Not even the badge you wear. I'll handle it, she said finally. Just keep this quiet. Ellie, I said I'll handle it. She hung up, her breath shallow. The fog outside seemed to press against her car windows, trapping her in a world closing in. She couldn't go back to San Quentin. Not yet. If Vargas had someone inside, every move she made there was watched. Instead, she drove to a dive bar in the Mission District, a place where cops and cons alike kept their secrets. She needed answers, and she needed them fast. Inside, the bar smelled of stale beer and regret. Ellie scanned the room, her cop instincts on high alert. In the corner, nursing a whiskey, was Tommy Ruiz, a retired detective who'd worked the Vargas case in 2015. She'd met him once at a precinct barbecue, his stories of the old days laced with bitterness. If anyone knew Vargas's weak spots, it was him. Harper, Tommy said as she slid into the booth, his voice gravelly from years of cigarettes. You look like hell. What's got you slumming it? Victor Vargas, she said, keeping her voice low. He's after me. Something about a ledger from a job in 15. You worked that case. What am I dealing with? Tommy's eyes narrowed, his fingers tightening around his glass. You're poking a hornet's nest, kid. Vargas was muscle for a cartel heist. Bank in Oakland, millions in cash. Jimmy Callahan was the driver, but the feds never found the money. Word was, Jimmy hid a ledger. Names of everyone involved. Cops, cartel, politicians. Vargas walked because the evidence vanished. You got something he wants? Ellie's stomach twisted. No ledger, just a notebook. Personal stuff. Nothing about a heist. Tommy leaned forward, his breath sour. Doesn't matter. Vargas thinks you've got it. You're a dead woman walking. He's got friends in high places. Cops, judges, even in your prison. You need to disappear, Harper. Now. I'm not running, she snapped, her voice sharper than intended. Jimmy trusted me with something. I need to know why. Tommy shook his head. Jimmy was a fool in love. His girl, Sarah, died before the heist. Broke him. He took the fall to protect her family from Vargas. If he gave you anything, it's probably a message for them, not some treasure map. Ellie's mind raced. Sarah's mother had the notebook now, but Ellie hadn't told her about Vargas. Had she put her in danger? Thanks, Tommy, she said, sliding out of the booth. I owe you. You owe me staying alive, he muttered, downing his drink. Back in her car, Ellie's phone pinged, a text from an unknown number. Check your locker. You'll want to see this. Her blood ran cold. Someone inside San Quentin knew something. Against her better judgment, she drove to the prison, the fog now so thick it swallowed her headlights. The prison was quiet at midnight, the graveyard shift skeleton crude. Ellie slipped into the staff locker room, her heart hammering. Her locker was ajar, a folded note tucked inside. She opened it, her hands shaking. You kept his secret. Now keep hers. 43 Ocean Way, Muir Beach, tonight. No signature, but the handwriting wasn't Jimmy's. Someone else knew about the notebook. About Sarah. Ellie's instincts screamed trap, but the address, Ocean Way, so close to Muir Beach, pulled at her like a tide. She grabbed her off-duty weapon, a small .38, and headed out. The drive to Muir Beach was eerie, the fog parting just enough to reveal the ocean's dark expanse. 14-23, Ocean Way was a small cottage, its windows dark, the paint peeling from years of salt air. Ellie parked a block away, her gun tucked in her jacket. She approached on foot, every sound amplified. The crash of waves, the crunch of gravel under her boots. The door was unlocked. Inside, the air was stale, the furniture covered in dust sheets. A single lamp flickered on a table, illuminating a photo frame. A young Jimmy and Sarah laughing on the beach, the sunset behind them. Ellie's chest tightened. This was their place, a piece of their past frozen in time. A floorboard creaked behind her. She spun, gun raised, to find Clara Nguyen, hands up, eyes wide. Don't shoot, Ellie, I'm not here to hurt you. Then why the hell are you here? Ellie snapped, her finger steady on the trigger. Clara lowered her hands slowly. I sent the note. I've been trying to protect you. Jimmy wasn't just my client's interest, he was my brother. Ellie's gun wavered. Your brother? Half-brother, Clara said, her voice breaking. Different dads, same mom. He didn't want anyone to know, for my safety. Vargas threatened our family after Sarah died. Jimmy took the fall to keep us out of it. That notebook you found? It's not a ledger, it's proof he was set up. Names, dates, but not what Vargas thinks. It's enough to reopen the case. Maybe take him down. Ellie lowered her gun, her mind reeling. Why didn't you tell me? I couldn't trust you, not at first. Jimmy said you were different, but I had to be sure. When you gave the notebook to Sarah's mom, I knew he was right about you. Ellie's thoughts spun. Vargas is after me. He thinks I have something. You do, Clara said, pulling a USB drive from her pocket. I copied the notebook before you gave it away. It's got enough to nail Vargas. Wire transfers, cop names, everything. But he's close, Ellie. He knows you're here. As if on cue, headlights flashed through the window. Ellie ducked, pulling Clara behind a couch. Stay down, she whispered, peering out. A black SUV idled outside, two figures stepping out. Vargas and another man, both armed. Ellie's heart raced. She was a corrections officer, not a SWAT team. But Jimmy's voice echoed in her mind. You gave me back a piece of me. She couldn't let Vargas win, not after everything. Clara, is there a back way out? Ellie whispered. Clara nodded, pointing to a side door. Leads to the beach. We can make it to my car. They moved silently, slipping out into the fog. The beach was a blur of sand and shadows, the ocean's roar masking their steps. But as they reached Clara's car, a shot rang out, kicking up sand inches from Ellie's feet. She spun, firing back her .38's report sharp in the night. Vargas's voice cut through the fog. "Harper, you're making this harder than it needs to be." Ellie shoved Clara into the car. "Drive, now." Clara floored it, the car fishtailing onto the road. Ellie leaned out the window, firing at the SUV's tires as it pursued. One shot hit, the SUV swerving but not stopping. "Head for the city," Ellie said, her voice steady despite the adrenaline. "We need to get this to someone clean." "Who?" Clara asked, her hands white-knuckling the wheel. "Tommy Ruiz, retired cop. He'll know who to trust." The chase stretched on, the fog both friend and foe, hiding them but blinding their path. Ellie's phone buzzed. Mia again. "Ellie, where are you?" Morales is asking questions. He mentioned Vargas. Ellie's blood ran cold. Morales? Her supervisor? "Mia, listen. Morales might be dirty. Don't tell him anything. I'm with Clara and Nguyen. We've got evidence on Vargas. I need you to meet us at Tommy Ruiz's place, 24th Street. Bring backup you trust." "Ellie, this is crazy. Just do it." Ellie hung up, her mind racing. If Morales was Vargas's inside man, she'd been betrayed from the start. They reached Tommy's apartment just as dawn broke, the fog lifting to reveal a blood-red sunrise. Tommy was waiting, his old service revolver in hand. "You're bringing a war to my doorstep, Harper," he said, but his eyes were sharp, ready. Clara handed him the USB. "This is everything. Jimmy's proof. Cops, cartel, all of it." Tommy plugged it into his laptop, scanning the files. His face hardened. "Jesus. This name's half the precinct from 15, Morales too. No wonder Vargas wants it." Headlights flashed outside. Ellie peered through the blinds. Vargas's SUV and another car. "They're here," she said, her voice calm despite the fear clawing her chest. Tommy handed her a spare clip. "You ready for this, kid?" Ellie nodded, thinking of Jimmy, of Sarah, of the sunset that started it all. For him, yeah. The standoff was quick and brutal. Vargas's men stormed the apartment, but Mia arrived with 2 trusted cops just in time. Shots echoed, glass shattered, and Ellie's training took over. She took down one of Vargas's men, her aim steady, her heart pounding with the weight of it all. Vargas himself was cornered, his gun empty, his arrogance gone. "You're done," Ellie said, cuffing him as Mia's backup secured the scene. "For Jimmy." Vargas smirked, blood trickling from a cut on his lip. "You think this ends it? There's always another me." "Maybe," Ellie said, her voice cold. "But not today." The aftermath was chaos. Internal affairs, FBI, reporters swarming. The USB's contents blew open the 2015 case, implicating Morales and a dozen others. Ellie was questioned, her role in Jimmy's final days scrutinized. But Clara's testimony and the notebook's truth cleared her, painting her as the officer who'd risked everything for justice. Weeks later, Ellie stood on Muir Beach, the sunset blazing like a promise kept. She held a new sketch, drawn by Sarah's mother. A recreation of Jimmy's, with Ellie's silhouette joined by 2 others. Jimmy and Sarah, hand in hand. A note was tucked inside. "Thank you for giving him peace." Ellie let the tears fall, the ocean swallowing them as it had the sun. Jimmy's wish had been more than a sunset. It was a call to fight, to love, to live. She wasn't the same guarded officer who'd walked into San Quentin months ago. She was Ellie Harper, who'd carried a dying man's heart and found her own in the process. As the last light faded, she whispered, "You're home, Jimmy. We both are." The San Francisco dawn broke with a clarity that felt almost cruel. The city's skyline sharp against a sky too blue for the chaos of the night before. Ellie Harper sat in a precinct interrogation room, her navy uniform wrinkled, her hands still trembling from the firefight at Tommy Ruiz's apartment. Victor Vargas was in custody, his empire of corruption crumbling under the weight of Jimmy Callahan's notebook, proof of a decade-old betrayal that had cost lives, including Jimmy's. The USB drive Clara Nguyen had copied was now with the FBI, its contents naming dirty cops, cartel operatives, and even Ellie's supervisor, Lieutenant Morales, who'd been arrested hours ago. Ellie's mind was a storm. She'd survived, but at what cost? Her job hung by a thread. Internal Affairs was circling, questioning her involvement with Jimmy, the sunset video, the notebook. She'd broken rules, crossed lines, all for a man whose hazel eyes still haunted her. For Ellie who brought me home. Those words, scrawled on a napkin sketch, were both her anchor and her unraveling. The door opened, and Clara stepped in, her lawyer's poise softened by exhaustion. "You're clear," she said, sitting across from Ellie. "The feds verified the evidence. You're a hero, not a suspect, but they want your statement on Jimmy." Ellie's throat tightened. "What's there to say? He was an inmate. I did my job." Clara's eyes softened. "He was more than that, and you know it. He trusted you, Ellie. That's why I'm here. There's one last thing he wanted you to have." She slid a small envelope across the table, sealed, with Ellie written in Jimmy's shaky hand. Ellie stared at it, her heart pounding. Another secret? She couldn't take more weight, but Clara's gaze held her, steady and sure, like Jimmy's had in those final days. "I'll give you some time," Clara said, standing. "Read it when you're ready." "And Ellie?" "Thank you." For him, alone, Ellie opened the envelope. Inside was a single sheet, folded tightly, and a small worn key taped to it. The note read, "Ellie, if you're reading this, you've done more than I ever deserved. The key's for a lockbox, First Coastal Bank, Sausalito. It's not money or secrets, just something Sarah left behind. I kept it for her, but it's yours now. You gave me the sunset, a piece of home. This is my way of giving you one. Be careful, but be you. The world needs more like you." Jimmy Ellie's eyes stung. A lockbox? After everything, Vargas, the chase, the betrayal, she thought she'd closed Jimmy's chapter. But here he was, reaching out from the grave, tying her to a past she'd never lived. She drove to Sausalito that afternoon, the key heavy in her pocket. The bank was quiet, the clerk unfazed as she led Ellie to the vault. The lockbox opened with a soft click, revealing a small velvet pouch and a folded letter, yellowed with age. The letter was in a woman's hand, Sarah's. "Jimmy, my love, if you're reading this, I'm gone, and you're carrying too much. This locket was my grandmother's, given to me when I left for California. I want you to have it, to remember the beach, the sunsets, us. You're not the man the world thinks you are. You're mine always." Sarah Ellie opened the pouch. A silver locket, simple but elegant, glinted in the dim light. Inside was a tiny photo of Jimmy and Sarah, young and laughing, the ocean behind them. Ellie's chest ached. This was what Jimmy had protected, what he'd died for. Not a ledger, but a piece of love he couldn't let go. She left the bank, driving to Muir Beach without thinking. The sun was setting, painting the sky in the same amber and crimson she'd shown Jimmy in his final days. She stood at the water's edge, the locket in her hand, the waves whispering secrets only they knew. Jimmy's life had been stolen by Vargas, by a system that chewed up the broken and spat them out. But he'd given her this, a piece of Sarah, a piece of himself. Ellie's phone buzzed. "Mia. You okay? IA's backing off, but the press is all over this. You're a damn legend, Harper." Ellie managed a small laugh. "I don't feel like one. You will. Come home. We'll drink to it. Soon," Ellie said, hanging up. She needed this moment, this sunset. She slipped the locket around her neck, its weight grounding her. Jimmy had seen her, not just the badge, but the woman who'd forgotten how to dream. He'd given her a piece of his heart, and in doing so, reminded her of her own. She thought of Sarah's mother, clutching the notebook, and Clara, carrying her brother's truth. They were all tied together now, bound by a man who'd loved fiercely despite everything. Ellie's walls, built so carefully over years, had cracked. She wasn't sure what came next. Maybe a new job, maybe leaving San Quentin for good. But as the sun dipped below the horizon, she felt a shift. A promise to live not just for duty, but for the fleeting moments that made life real. "I kept your secret, Jimmy," she whispered to the waves. And hers. "Rest now." The tide rolled in, carrying her words away. Ellie turned from the beach, the locket warm against her skin, and walked into the twilight, ready to face whatever came next. A woman changed by a sunset, a wish, and a love that refused to die.